Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Many years ago, I worked in a group home. For the privacy of all the residents, we had a set visitation room. With visitation hours by appointment only. Appointment only so that two families weren't trying to visit at the same time. It had a separate entrance and a door that shut it off from the rest of the house. It had a half bath, a TV, cable hookup, game console, maybe 50 games, DVD player, and about 150 movies, board and card games, along with nice comfy seating and a small 4-person table. Visitors were not allowed anywhere but that room if any of the other residents were home. It didn't matter if Bill wanted to show off his new bedding set or if Jack's mom wanted to see if he needed new clothes. If the other residents were home, no. The families of 5 of the residents were fine with it. Kyle's mother and grandmother were not. They firmly believed they were within their rights to enter the rest of the house and inspect it and his housemate. He was their baby and they had rights by God. Actually no, the residents of this home were 30 to 40-year-old men with developmental and physical disabilities. They were all actually wards of the state. The fact they are even allowed to know where he was, let alone visit, was a huge privilege. Our agency had many other homes where the families, other residents had no idea where they were and weren't allowed to see them. The families were only allowed to contact the case manager and inquire about them. Back to Kyle's mom and grandma. It was a constant battle to keep them out of the rest of the house. It got to the point that we had to have an extra staff member during their visits. They had to sit outside the connection door while the visits were going on and physically stand blocking their way when they would attempt to enter. I lost track of how many times we ended up calling the police to have them removed from the main part of the house before that happened. That's when they started calling the police on us. After the 3rd time of them calling the police to demand entrance to the rest of the house, they lost their privilege of visiting. Kyle was moved to another home where they weren't allowed to know the address. This didn't go over well. To put it nicely, they were adamant Kyle was still in our home and they threatened us several times that we will pay for keeping their baby from them. A restraining order was granted against them, keeping them 800 feet from the house, staff, residents, and no calls to the house. It all came to a head one night when at dark 30, I was locking up the house for the night. All the doors and windows had to be checked and the alarm system. Another staff was doing bedtime medicine, the other 2 were helping out with bedtime routines and getting laundry going. I kept telling the other staff I smelled smoke like a campfire, just faint whiffs of it. They said I was crazy and I had just walked the entire house and nothing was burning. It must be a neighbor having a small backyard fire or something. And I got a whiff while closing the windows and it was stuck in my nose. It finally was strong enough for the others to smell it. In pairs, we checked the house again. Nothing, but the smell is getting stronger. We met back in the living room and decided to go ahead and call the fire department when we realized we could see wisps of smoke in the living room. We woke the residents and had them put on shoes and jackets. The smoke in the living room was now clearly visible and starting to make its way towards the bedrooms, and it triggered the alarms. Finally, protocol was to evacuate and get the residents to the van. The living room was the exact center of the house, with an open floor plan with a kitchen on one side and the laundry room on the other. The bedrooms were through the living room and to the left and right, along with the 2 bathrooms. The visitors' room and our office being at opposite ends of each other. Down the hall, we shuffled to our office because the van was parked to that side and the keys in the office. As we came around the corner of the house, we saw the source of the smoke. Our front porch was on fire. The house was brick, which is what was preventing it from spreading outward, but it was spreading upward towards the roof. The police and the fire departments arrived just as we reached the van. Fire department went to work on the house and the police headed towards us, and we're all fine except 4 people came running up to us. Kyle's mother and grandmother, along with two unknown men. The two women started screaming for Kyle and they were here to rescue him. We had endangered him by allowing him to live in a fire trap. They suddenly realized there was no Kyle in the group and were now screaming that we had left him to burn in Nat's house. They were suing us and they would shut us down and have us imprisoned for murder. The police quickly asked if we had left someone behind, to which we answered no. We have all 6 men, but for their safety we had to get them in a van and then we would sort this out. The police held the mother and grandma back from us, while they continued to shriek about Kyle and that we had left him to die. 2 of the staff loaded them while me and my coworker talked to the police, starting with the fact that those 2 women had a restraining order and for his safety and ours, Kyle had been moved to a location unknown to them. They were cuffed immediately and told to pipe down. We proceeded to explain what had transpired that evening. The fire was doused quickly while we did this. One of the firemen came over to talk to the officers and we heard him say, "There was preliminary evidence this fire was set deliberately. There will be a formal investigation." Kyle's mother and grandmother were arrested for violating the restraining order and suspicion of arson. The 2 men were arrested on suspicion of arson also. Results of the investigation determined a clear case of arson. There were also a deliberate triggering of a device to the door leading out of the visitation room that would have been fatal to the person opening the door, and if anyone was close by, debilitating, if not fatal. The 4 were indicted on vandalism, arson, 8 counts of attempted homicide, 2 counts of attempted murder. It came out they were unaware of the other side of the door, which saved lives. They got a plea deal and got 7 to 10 years each. This was back in the early 2000s, so I don't remember what exactly the sentence was. Many years ago, before AI Gore invented the World Wide Web, I was a broke student who wrenched on cars on the side to make ends meet. Those who dislike walls of text, feel free to skip to the payoff at the bottom. Background: 1 year as classes ended for the summer, I started noticing that the cars I worked on would leave with significantly less fuel than they arrived with. Someone was siphoning gas from them. They were smart enough to leave my car alone, but they would sometimes hit the same car multiple times if it sat there long enough. I was trying to work out a way to catch the thief without sitting up all night, but wasn't having much luck. Inspiration. As luck would have it, a prank at work provided the inspiration needed. There were some devices being scrapped that had these thick rubber platters with a threaded connector molded right into one end. It was my job to break these machines down to salvage some valuable spares and chuck the rest into the scrap bin. A coworker thought it would be funny to connect one of those platters to an air hose and inflate it. Well, it inflated, but it didn't blow up like a balloon as he expected. It blew up a bit, then popped with a tremendous bang. It sounded like a bomb went off. I had hearing protection on and was a good 75 feet away, and I still just about soiled myself. It sounded like a 12-gauge shotgun from hell. He nearly got fired over that, but he had given me an idea. The execution. I snagged several of those platters, along with a dumb valve off one of the scrap machines with the boss's blessing. I then contacted the buddy who had recently had me look at his sister's 74 Ford with a dying engine. The thing was burning so much oil it was a traffic hazard. She still had it though. Back then, scrap cars were next to worthless. Often the salvage yard wouldn't even come pick them up for free if you weren't close. Our local yard will give you $25 if you drove them in, or maybe trade you a few parts for a whole car. History lesson over. I offered to dispose of the car and soon found myself the proud owner of a car with 3 tires in the grave. I got a buddy involved and we set to work. We removed the gas tank, we put my big air tank in the trunk, then I rigged the dumb valve to the filler cap door with a bit of a fishing line. We drilled holes right through the body. It was set so that when someone opened the filler cap door, the dumb valve would let air from the tank flow into the platter which was underneath the car. We tested it and after a bit of tweaking would pop one of those platters pretty quickly. We set our trap and I drove it to my place. It was an now orphaned fuel line routed into a small bulk can in the trunk. I parked it and waited. The payoff. As with most things like this, it did not work right away. I'd had to open the trunk and top the air tank off a couple times due to a slow leak. Finally, one night about a week later, I was woken from a sound sleep. Boom! It took me a second to realize what happened, but then I frantically ran outside. Whoever it was had fled the scene in record time. The only evidence of their presence was an open filler cab door, air hissing from under the Ford, and a very nice metal gas can with a length of rubber hose laying nearby. I've always hoped that the thief thought they had been narrowly missed with a shotgun, but I'll never know. I just know that the mysterious fuel disappearances stopped. By the way, I still have that gas can. I don't even use it anymore and the spout is broken off, but I keep it on a shelf in my shop as a trophy. I don't think I'm a jerk, honestly. However, literally everyone I've spoken to is against me on this because it's just food. I would never make someone feel bad over food and blah blah blah. So here I am, 30, female. I have a 13-year-old son named Colby, who is my ex-husband. Last year, my son desperately wanted to go to Japan because his father currently lives there, and my son had been there multiple times for visits during the summer and fell in love with it. He begged me to let him live with his dad for a year, and while it broke my heart and gave me extreme anxiety, I agreed. I couldn't say no. He went there for a year and came back home in August of this year. As many could imagine, Japan has much different cuisines than the US does, and while my son wouldn't complain about anything I put in front of him, he did make a few comments about missing Japanese dishes. So I went through a few websites, got a hold of his dad and so on, and I was able to get some of the ingredients and recipes shipped out to me. His favorite one is some type of noodles with a dark brown spicy sauce. I can't really remember the name off the top of my head, but since it's his favorite, I have his father send me out the noodles and sauce so my son can prepare it for himself at home, as well as buying him the fresh ingredients needed. Well, me, my husband's daughter, 9, asked Colby the day before yesterday if she could have some of his noodles. He said no. He only said no because he's made the dish for her before and she wasted the entire thing because it was too spicy. So she doesn't like it and therefore he said no, and reminded her that she didn't like it. Before my daughter could even respond, my husband pipes up with, "Give her some. There is no reason why you can't share." So I stepped in and said no, and that she's already had it and threw it in the trash. And this is his food. He doesn't have to share his food. He just kind of walks off. Well, this morning my son asked where all of his noodles were, 4 packages, and my husband said, "I ate them." I asked why he would do that and he said, "Because I wanted to." To me, this felt like a big screw you because I told him my son didn't have to share his food, so I did lose it. He did this on purpose, I just know it. I told him he was a pig on a power trip and he would be ashamed of himself for eating my son's food. He says I'm ridiculous and that I'm a jerk for calling him a pig. Because, well, he's overweight, simply because he was hungry and wanted to eat. Everyone else says that I'm the jerk too. As I said, am I the jerk? And now some comments on the post. Not the jerk. Your husband seems to be on a power trip and I'm thinking there was more than one reason your son wanted to live with his father in Japan so much. Yeah, it's just food, however it's food that was purchased by your son's father and then shipped to him from Japan. It belongs to your son and your son only. He doesn't have to give it to anyone he doesn't want to, as it's a gift from his father. I really think you need to have a private conversation with your son away from your husband and ask him if your husband treats him poorly when you're not around. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the answer was yes. Also, eating 4 packages of noodles in one sitting just to dominate your 13-year-old son is both a big thing to do and extremely immature. It's the equivalent of licking all the cookies so no one else can have one. ETA? If you choose to stay in this marriage, get your son a lockbox or safe that he can store his non-perishable food items in, and possibly even a small fridge with a lock on it as well, if there are any perishable items that need refrigeration, because I guarantee you, this is only the beginning. Another commenter adds, "Not the jerk, especially knowing you were already considering divorce. He sounds vindictive. He 100% ate all of it out of spite and animosity towards your son. Just stick it to him for not wanting to share. In most cases, I'd agree that food is just food and your son shouldn't be able to stake claim. But where this is a specialty item for him, it takes some work to get, I don't think he should risk sharing another one only to get it wasted again. Your husband is mean-spirited and a child." A third commenter goes with, "Agree here, not the jerk, and in no way did he not do this on purpose. I'm sorry about your son's special food, I would lose it. Get your son a lockbox to keep in his room and have his dad resend the food and keep it locked up." I work for a chain convenience store company located in the Midwest and based in Virginia. I enjoy my job and have many regulars who stop in, and a couple are regulars. Now, normally there is only one person on shift unless the morning where the manager is there. This particular day was just me. It was a busy day and I had a line of customers. The phone rings and I recognize the phone number and look out the window to see one of my wheelchair-bound veterans outside. I acknowledge that I see him and give him a 1-minute signal to let him know I will be out in a minute. I look at the line and where the last customer is to make a note of when I will help him. After I get done with that person, I kindly apologize and state that I have a wheelchair-bound customer that I need to assist first to the line of customers. Big fishing tournament in town as well as it being summer. They understand and have no problem with this, and 90% of our customers are regulars. As I'm getting this customer's order, my other wheelchair veteran pulls up. I walked over and let him know that I will be out in a few minutes to pump his gas. This customer knows that I keep my word and states okay. I'm walking back to the store and holding the door for the customer walking in. We will call her Karen, even though I didn't know this at the time. I made a note to help her after I helped the second veteran as he was first. I go and get the items that my first veteran requested and ring them up and cash them out. I apologize one more time and take the items to the customer. Upon entering the store, I'm met with a rude response. Karen is yelling at me that I shouldn't be assisting like that and he should come in. She doesn't know he's in a wheelchair. I state I'm sorry, but he was next in line and told her why I did what I did. She continues to rant and says he should have someone come with him then. I ignored her and headed to the register to ring up the customers who waited patiently, which was about 2 minutes max. I finally got done with the line, as most just wanted cigarettes or to pay for their gas they had pumped. We're not a prepay location even though corporate wants us to be. I finally get through the line and Karen, who's complaining the whole time about the line, is the next customer. I start to tell her that I will be right back and I need to help the veteran next, but she gets in my face and demands to know why her card isn't working at the bump. I ignored her comment and told her I will be right with her after I help the veteran at the bump as he was next. She states that she's next and I need to help her first. I have already had enough of this lady and I didn't want to say something that will get me in trouble. I let the customers in line know that I will be right back. About 2 minutes later, I came back inside after having pumped the gas for this veteran. The first thing I hear is, "About freaking time. Took you long enough." This was a straw that broke the camel's back. I looked at her and said, "Ma'am, I had 2 regular customers come in who are both disabled veterans, wheelchair bound. We help them when they come in. Sometimes they come in when there are 2 people here, and sometimes not, and almost never at the same time, nor usually the same day. Yes, I'm busy, but I helped them in the order that they came in. I have heard nothing but complaining from you. No other customer even said a word. In fact, I got praise from a few because I did that. Why do you feel that they should have to wait longer because you came in after them?" Karen states that she's in a hurry and needs to get to work and then pushes me with her hands toward the register and tells me, "Do your job and help me." Karen had met me at the door. I tell her that I am refusing service and she can go somewhere else. Karen demands that I call the manager in and that she wants to speak to him. I tell her that he's gone, but she tells me to call him. I state that I will not and ask her to leave. Okay, this part is the best part. In line, I see the sheriff who's off duty. I tell Karen 1 second and I speak up so the sheriff can hear me. "Would you step up here, please?" The sheriff steps up and has seen the whole thing. Karen is white now. The sheriff asks me if I would like to press charges for battery as she physically put her hands on me, to which I stated I would. Karen tries to run away but is held up by the customers blocking the door. The sheriff calls for a deputy to respond, and about 5 minutes later, Karen is crying as she's being put in handcuffs. She is charged for battery and public disturbance and banned from the location. Her husband had to leave work to come get the kid, who was in the car and who was not too happy at all.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.